This is Priyanka Sarkar, and welcome to the Sports Soul, a space where we explore the real stories and emotions behind strength in sports and in life.
In your experience, how much of money management is really emotional?
Fear, grief, anxiety, etc., would make you take decisions you should have never otherwise taken.
Why do you think people shy away from checking their financial situation? What is your opinion regarding the connection between finances and mental health?
Financial clarity and where we are, where where you need to be, drastically helps you calm your nerves. If you don't have an emotional connect with your client, why will you need it? AI can never replace.
So before we dive deep, can you tell us about yourself?
Hi, I'm Chris Priyesh. I'm a qualified chartered accountant. I qualified my CA in the year 2012. It's been almost 12 years since completion of CA. I have been working with multiple institutions. Currently, I'm leading the capital markets practice or the investment banking practice of global company in Hyderabad. We help developers raise funds from PE funds and the likes of them.
Thank you, Samu. Most people view finance as logical numbers, spreadsheets, and decisions. But in your experience, how much of money management is really emotional?
Ideally, management should never be emotional. Fear, grief, anxiety, etc., would make you take decisions which you should have never otherwise taken. Grief makes you, buy something just randomly, like a lottery ticket. But logic never allows you to buy a lottery ticket because you'll never be it, right? So most of the successful money managers have always dependent on their logic to take financial decisions. One of the basic requirement of a money manager is to be able to keep his emotions in check. He would take a financial decision. That is what we follow. That is what is to our clients. That is what everyone else does. Logic helps you, takes into consideration your requirements, your needs, and your abilities to give you a solid plan of it. Emotion is what decides whether you follow it or not.
True. Yeah. So చాలా మంది తమ finances ని అవాయిడ్ చేస్తారు. Even when they know it's imperfect, they don't open their bank apps, or they don't open their credit card bills, or they do not check how much they have spent per month. They do not check their financial statements. Why do you think people shy away from checking their financial situation?
Avoidance typically comes from either inability or fear or, being afraid of what people will think or people fear of judgment. So if you're looking at what typically, let's take a simple example of someone who makes a lakh every month and he might be having 30,000 per month. Every month 1 lakh salary వస్తుంది అంత ఖర్చులు పోయిందో 30,000 మిగులుతుంది తనకు అది ఏం చేయాలో తెలియదు. So that is inability, right? If he looks around, ఫ్రెండ్స్ అందరూ ఏం చేస్తారు, కొంతమంది స్టాక్ మార్కెట్లో పెట్టంటారు, కొంతమంది కారు కొనుక్కో అంటారు, కొంతమంది చిట్ ఫండ్ లో పెట్టంటారు. He would have seen people use all their life savings in stock market, right? He would have also seen people made a shitload of money in stock market. So everything, right? And everything that is, people would have say PPFs పెట్టంటారు, ELSs పెట్టంటారు, etc. So on and so forth. All these things, when people get a lot of information, right? And there's a lot of suggestions also. And అలాగని చెప్పి ఎవరిని అడిగా ఉంటాం, నేను ఆల్సో బస్ నీకు ఇది కూడా తెలియదా, 30,000 ఏం చేయాలో కూడా తెలియదా ఫీలింగ్ ఉంటాం. సో your inability and fear of judgment and anxiety on how to manage all these things, that typically drives people away from walking into that path of understanding what are my finances, having a clarity.
Thank you. So let's say you said financial clarity. When somebody gets financial clarity, people breathe easier because now they have a clear path, they have clarity of thought. And have you seen that shift from chaos to calm? And what is your opinion regarding the connection between finances and mental health?
So finances and mental health are deeply linked. అందులో చాలా మనకి బంధం వచ్చేసరికి సరిగ్గా నిద్ర కూడా పడదు. ఏమో ఈఎంఐస్ ఏమవుతాయి, శాలరీ ఒక 2-3 days డిలే అయితే హౌ విల్ యూ పే గ్రాసరీ బిల్స్, గ్రాసరీ స్టోర్ వాడు వస్తాడు, కరెంట్ బిల్ వేస్తాడు, వీళ్ళందరికీ డబ్బులే. సో దెర్ ఇస్ నో క్లారిటీ. And that leads to a lot of anxiety and, leads to a lot of sleeplessness. And it's so on and so forth, right? And financial clarity can either make or break your.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So just getting that financial clarity and where we are, where we, where we need to be, drastically helps you build your, calm your nerves and soothe your emotional well-being. So they're deeply, deeply in the head.
I'll bring in some example. I saw an interview with MS Zoli once. He said, Daddy తీసుకొచ్చి మమ్మీకి డబ్బులు ఇచ్చేసేవారు. Mummy had to run with that amount of money. That she had to run the house with that amount of money. Now all of a sudden, I'll go and ask her a chocolate. Now, for me asking a chocolate is not a big deal. But if she has to give me the money for chocolate, she has to realign her budget. So this is also a burden for housemakers of how they manage their things. And now they have to quickly recalculate and not break the calmness. Now, if chocolate is there, they cannot tell the whole financial calculations to the small boy who's asking for chocolate. I'll just take a detour and ask, because when you talk about mental well-being, most of the financial decision makers in the family when it comes to domestic usage is women, the housemakers, the homemakers, if I may say this. Now, you have your wife. So you give her money, tell her, okay, this is what you need to align. And all of a sudden, an unwanted guest, let me not say unwanted guest, unexpected guest comes home. Now you have to make sure they are taken care of. And this comes out of the budget. And how do you think women can make those choices about not breaking their head about, what will happen tomorrow? How do I manage it? How do you think people or women in particular can make those choices knowing that they can still keep quiet or calm in spite of the unexpected expenses? It happens in every household. So how do you think can be done?
So I think this is something that we have seen our mother, we have seen our aunts too. ప్రతి ఇంట్లో ఉండేది typically, and we have seen a lot of people handle it much grace and better ability than others would have handled it. In comparison, the way our mother has handled the financials, I strongly think that our father would have not handled it in the same fashion. And it is the same case with most of our aunts and uncles. And so the typical, most of the economic principles that they have followed is they follow the same principles. Have a safety net. And have a safety net on top of the safety. You have a safety net for your monthly expenditure, which might come out of, all the sudden supplies. And then you have a financial safety net, which might be for your major expenses, your medical expenses or all those things. So they have been doing a small, saving here and there and, making a small safety net and then a larger safety net for the larger financial issues. And also just adding to it, I think one of the smartest thing that most of these people have always been doing is, either doing a small fund or, getting the small insurances done. So it has been, deep down. It's a practice which has been followed by many people over a period of time. These cover those, unexpected expenses that really pop up.
And I bring some perception that we have. Financial success అంటే చాలా మందికి it's being rich. But real success is making aligned choices. How can people shift from wealth at any cost to value-based financial decisions?
So people should ideally have a clarity on what their values are and what is important. Is it just a societal norms? Is that what is important? Or, mattering most of people actually are important in my life? Is my family important? Are new experiences important? Is my following passion important? Once you establish what is more important to you, you would walk towards that path. Right? Wealth at any cost doesn't mean, even otherwise, when people say wealth at any cost, they also have a moral, filter. They will not be going, randomly in the market and, kidnapping someone for a ransom. ఎవరో దొరికిన కిడ్నీ అమ్మాయిను ఇలాంటివన్నీ చేయరు. They also have a moral filter. But the unfortunate fact is, they know they have values. They can sit down, jot it down, maintain a diary, and understand, okay, boss, this is what I want in life. This is actually what makes me happy. This is what makes me sleep at night peacefully. Then they would be in a way better situation than what they are currently. Just chasing everything. My friend has a car, I need to have a car. All those societal pressures and what drives people, from taking wrong decisions or jumping into something which does not matter for them.
True. So I'll come to a personal question. When I wanted to become a sports psychologist, I was working in Oracle as an IT analyst. I was doing good. I was in Bangalore, ducked up in an AC cabin. I was doing really good. And then I said, I want to become a sports psychologist out of nowhere. And it all came because of a tennis match that I've been watching. And then I said, Nana, I want to become a sports psychologist. And you did not object to it because nobody knew what a sports psychologist was doing. And then I came back to you after every setback. Now, when you say, we talked about aligned choices, value-based decisions. And we did not know about the casting. We did not know about the casting coach. We did not know about how people try to cut corners when they have to pay you, or they have just vanish after taking your services. Now, every time I came back to you crying. You said, you did not say, Nana, quit it. You did not say, Nana, you have to be smart. Now, I'm asking somebody like me, okay? Now, it's just not like me who is like this, the mini psychologist. And my value-based service is, I make sure your mental well-being is good. And when behind the screens, I'm suffering because they haven't paid me till after a certain point in time. Now, when you say value-based decisions, and you also said you do not make those decisions because of societal pressures, but you just need to make those decisions which can let you sleep peacefully at night. So, for me, if I have to ask you, as your sister, or also as a sports psychologist, what would you suggest for somebody who still wants to sleep peacefully at night, knowing that they have given the best of their service, and they haven't been greedy or anything, or they're still making value-based decisions in life? What do you suggest for people who can't think logically? Like you said, no, decisions should not be made emotionally, they should be made logically. As a sports psychologist, what would you suggest to people out here? Or any psychologist for that matter?
See, they say there is something new onto this way, right? So this is the same problem that a lot of people have faced. And there has been a solution for also breaking down your problem. Not just your problem, the problem of many service goods people. So typically what happens is, most of the time, it's my friends who are in graphics exactly. Everyone claims ki boss clients వస్తారు పని చేయించుకుంటారు ఫీజ్ మనం సొల్యూషన్ ఇస్తాము ఐడియా పట్టుకుని వెళ్ళిపోతాడు అది ఫీజ్ పే చేయడం. This is what happens after startup firms, solution. But why doesn't it happen with the big firms? There is Deloitte, there is KPMG, there is EY, PwC. Why doesn't it happen? So the problem is the same. Client is coming here with a challenge. You're giving him a solution. It's not paying a fees here. In other case, it's paying a fees. Right? And in my profession, we are success driven. So our fee is completely being driven by the success of the transaction. We are not paid, for sharing an idea. We are not paid for sharing an input or working on a transaction. There have been many cases where we worked on a transaction 6 to 8 weeks, and the deal has fallen apart. Right? So what is the problem? You're giving a solution to the client. The client is not paying you. Right? What is the solution to it? Collect the fees in it. Close all these hoops. These are called as internal controls. Right? Problem, you're taking it in an emotional manner. If you just break it down and say, boss, you're coming to me for a solution. You know that I'm capable of providing you a solution. Right? If you strongly believe that, pay me the money in advance and come to me for a solution. Otherwise, please take your service for some time. Most of the time, if you're not being paid in advance, they're not paying you in advance, right? They don't value your time. They don't take, your advice and inputs that seriously. The moment they pay something, నువ్వు చెప్పే కాకమ్మ కథలు కూడా మహాభారతంలో అనిపిస్తాయి. It is a whole difference because they've given money, they try to find value in it. Otherwise, it is just free advice. The second thing is, first thing is, establish your control mechanism. When you have controls, keywords, what? The teenage balance matter. So that is all the entire control system established. assume that you will not pay. What will happen? So that is the reason you corrected and cards. So there is a there control mechanism. మంచితనానికి చేతనానికి డిఫరెన్స్ ఉండదు. You guys think you're nice. You're you, there's a very very good client of mine. He says, Chris, నేను అమాయకుడు అనుకుంటావు, నేను అమాయకుడు కాదు, నేను మంచోడిని అంతే. People take me granted for my goodness of heart. And so I told you the same thing. He's a pretty big guy who has a 5,000 crore company running on this. So I tell him the same thing. I'm telling you the same thing. మంచితనానికి చేతకాంతనానికి తేడా. మీ చేతకాంతనం మంచితనం కాదు. అది అనుకుని మీరు బతకూడదు. If you're not able to collect fees from your client, then have someone who will be able to ask for fees. మనకి డాక్టర్స్ యూజువల్లీ దే హ్యావ్ రిసెప్షనిస్ట్ ఆర్ సమ్వన్ ఎల్స్ హూ కలెక్ట్స్ ద ఫీస్. వై? డాక్టర్స్ మొహమాటం ఉంటుంది, అలా అడగలేదు. ఇవి సమ్వన్ ఇన్ ద ఫ్రంట్ డెస్క్ కూర్చే బస్ ఫీస్ కడితే లోపలికి వెళ్ళి నీకు అర్థం వస్తుందా? సరే మంచిది నాన్న నీకు. లేదంటే వీ డూ ప్రోబోనో, రైట్? ఎవరీవన్ డస్ ప్రోబోనో అండ్ వీఆర్ నాట్ స్టాపింగ్ ఫ్రమ్ డూయింగ్ ప్రోబో. వి జస్ట్ avoiding situations where clients are taking you for granted. True. Right? And when you know you're not going to get a fees, you're doing something pro bono, you know you're not going to get fees.
Yeah.
And you will decide whether you want to take that course of, path or not. That is your decision. It is not, you will not have any anxiety or any doubleness or a headache.
In my work with athletes, there is invisible pressure to succeed. And I'm guessing financial stress is also like that. And do you notice any emotional tone in your clients or with people whom you interact with regarding the financial stress and they go through?
కొంచెం డబ్బులు ఎక్కువ వస్తే ఈ ఫైనాన్షియల్ హెడ్ఏక్స్ అన్ని ఉండవు అనుకుంటున్నాను. బట్ మోస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద పీపుల్ దట్ ఐ ఇంటరాక్ట్ ఆర్ యూజువల్లీ ద బిలియనీర్స్. And I've always seen the financial stress, the silent burden. You might be facing a small challenge. You might be having a financial stress on a smaller. మన ఫైనాన్షియల్ స్ట్రెస్ మేబీ 5 లక్షలు 10 లక్షలు అయిపోవచ్చు. వాళ్ళ ఫైనాన్షియల్ స్ట్రెస్ మేబీ 50 కోట్లు 10 కోట్లు 100 కోట్లు అయిపోవచ్చు. రైట్? ద స్ట్రెస్ అండ్ ద సైలెంట్ బర్డెన్ ఇస్ ఆన్ ఎవ్రీవన్. Right? It is just what happens is, to a certain extent, all the mid cap or all the smaller companies, SMEs and others, or the first gen entrepreneurs, they will not be able to identify the impact of it and stress entundi annadi మనకి ఇనిషియలీ అర్థం కాదు. The importance of handling it in the initial phase itself, the importance of taking financial planning, financial budgeting and everything, వాళ్ళకి ఇనిషియలీ అర్థం కాదు. కొంచెం వెళ్ళిన తర్వాత ఒక చిన్న హార్ట్ కొంచెం తేడాగా కొట్టుకోవడం మొదలు పెట్టినప్పుడు డాక్టర్ చెప్తాడు, నా యూర్ అండర్ ట్రెమెండస్ స్ట్రెస్ అని. దట్ ఈస్ వెన్ దే స్టార్ట్ రియలైజింగ్, ఓకే, ఐఎమ్ అండర్ స్ట్రెస్. దే థింక్ ఐఎమ్ డూయింగ్ ద గ్రైండ్, ఐఎమ్ డూయింగ్ సంథింగ్ గ్రేట్. సో అందుకని కొంచెం ప్రెషర్ ఉంటుంది అనుకుంటారు, కానీ దే విల్ నాట్ యాక్చువల్లీ టు a very significant extent understand the impact financial stress. And the unfortunate part is, most of it that they're going through can be actually properly dealt with with just a proper financial planning. And that is what differentiates from the big boys from the smaller boys or the middle people in the mid-class segment.
I'll ask you something, Apu. I'll not ask you to take all the names. You said it's a silent word. How many of them run to a CA and how many of them run to a mental health expert?
So typically what happens is, almost all these guys have their CFOs, have the taxation and taxation department heads. If you look at the large organizations, there is a CFO, there is an F&A head, which is finance and tech ops, there is a direct taxation, there is an indirect taxation, right? So, and in some departments or some companies, there is also a treasury. Treasury handles the funding. Now, everyone, to a certain extent, is filtering the stress which have otherwise reached. Then there's a CFO, then a CEO. Typically, in most of these real estate companies, what happens is the promoter himself is a CEO. Right? There is a CFO behind. To a certain extent, the pressure, is already minimized. So he has to work on other things. Stress of pressure, anxiety is already to a certain extent minimized. Right? As I said, this is what differentiates your large companies from the smaller startups, where the promoter handles everything. And what happens predominantly in the smaller situations is, they will have an in-house accountant who will most often, they're not, will be the reason of the stress. Either better create yesterday, that fellow has to clear that mess. So, right? So these guys predominantly do run to this CA, be it the taxation issues, be it the taxation issues or accounting issues and everything. The CAs are the usual trusted advisors, right? And I've not the other way that this handles stress is most of these guys go to either meditation or yoga or some of these things. But I've not seen most of these guys, especially the ones who are handling the business, go to a mental health expert. But at least they are not discussed with me because it is still a taboo.
So let's say we have spoken about the 15 odd billionaires in Hyderabad. How about the lower side, the lower end of the stairs? Not many of them can afford a CA's advices until there is tax filing or income tax to something. Do you have any idea or any research that says that these people also go to a mental health expert, or they only run to a life coach or a financial expert?
I have no idea. See, usually what happens is every other guy who starts a real estate company, very dependent on CA for one thing. Be it for just filing his returns, be it for a small construction. So the bank loan for doing the project or లేదు ప్రాజెక్ట్ లోన్ కి అప్రూవల్ కావాలి, హౌసింగ్ లోన్ అప్రూవల్ కావాలి. వీటన్నిటికీ దేనికో దానికి సీఏ దగ్గరికి పెడతాం, సీఏ అడ్వైజర్స్ తీసుకుని అవుతా ఉంటాయి. బట్ మెంటల్ హెల్త్ ఎక్స్పర్ట్కి వచ్చేసరికి ద అన్ఫార్చునేట్ ట్రూత్ ఆల్సో ఇస్ దాట్ having a good mental, having the willingness to go to a good mental expert is one, and finding a good mental health expert is another one. And unfortunately, paid online or paid the experiences of people have not been that positive.
Yeah, true.
Right. So people usually are not that inclined, especially when it comes into a field like real estate. There is a lot of fighting involved. Bodily stay on the visit, right? He will typically say first, he will not have a fixed time where he can sit and say, this is the time I'll spend with my therapist, with this mental health coach or whatever. Right? So అంత ఫ్లూయిడ్ గా ఉండే థెరపిస్ట్ లో ఈ ఛాలెంజెస్ అన్ని అబ్జర్వ్ చేస్తున్న థెరపిస్ట్ చాలా తక్కువ మంది. సో దిస్ ఇస్ వేర్ being flexible in your career tells a lot of CS. Unfortunately, we don't see those kind of feedbacks from friends who have approached it. Yes. Experience has been so far so meager. Nothing great to talk.
Because not everybody has a surplus of 30,000 at the end of the day. Look at me, or look at any sports, a psychologist for that matter, are pays legal. And they have delayed as well. So we are not, how many times, there are many times that I do not even want to look at my bank balance because I'm afraid that it will affect my mental health in the first place. What is the first step that you would suggest? And how can they start without fear or judgment?
See, the basic thing is you're not alone. You're not the first one who is going through this. You'll not be the last one going through this. There was one point of time where, I think I did not even have that 3-digit number in my bank. And this was when I was working. Right? And I had a crazy designation also in my thing, and all this stuff happened. So financial literacy starts with understanding because you're not alone. So just breaking it down. నువ్వు నీ బ్యాంక్ బ్యాలెన్స్ చూసుకోలేదు కాబట్టి ఫస్ట్ నీకు పడే ఈఎంఐ పడకుండా ఉండదు. నువ్వు చూసుకోకపోయినా పడుతుంది. బట్ ఇఫ్ యూ నో వేర్ యూఆర్ స్టాండింగ్, లెట్స్ సే యువర్ ఈఎంఐ is 10,000 rupees, you have 1,000 rupees in your pocket, right? You need 9,000. At least having the clarity, okay, ఆ 9,000 కావాలి, ఈ 9,000 నేను అరేంజ్ చేసుకోగలనా లేదా. ఇఫ్ యూ నో దట్ 1,000 ఉందా లేదా అని తెలుసుందండి, ఈ 9,000 అరేంజ్ చేసుకోవాలని తెలుసు. ఈ 9,000 అరేంజ్ చేసుకోవడానికి యూ మైట్ డూ 3 or 4 calls or whatever. మనం పడే కష్టాలు మనం పడతాం, రైట్? అసలు ఆ 1,000 ఉందని కూడా తెలియదు అనుకో. Or let's say take a situation where in which the EMI is 10,000 and it is you have 9,000 in your bank account. If you're afraid to open your bank account and see, if you don't want to take that first step, you'll always be stuck. ఆ 1,000 అరేంజ్ చేసుకుని ఉంటే the EMI clear అయిపోయాడు, would have not been in challenge. Looking at it, taking, maybe accepting that that you're not the only person who is going through this is the first step. And second thing is putting your pen and paper together, writing where you are, where you want to be, and having the clarity, that solves a lot of issues. If you want, let's say, and you anyways know your goal, the end of the month, you know, this is what I want. And you know, this much is what you want. And let's say you want 10,000 rupees, simple example. And your salary is, let's say, salary and the 5,000 మిగులుతుంది. నీకు ఇంకో 5,000 కావాలంతే. ఆ 5,000 కి ఏం చేస్తాము అని చెప్పి అట్లీస్ట్ వర్క్ టువర్డ్స్. బట్ ఇఫ్ యూర్ నాట్ ఏబుల్ టు ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ నీకు 5,000 ఉన్న మిగులుతుంది అని చెప్పి ఆ క్లియర్ కట్ క్లారిటీ లేకపోతే యూ విల్ బి స్టక్ ఇన్ దట్ లూప్ ఫర్ ఎవర్. యూ నీడ్ టు నో వాట్ ఆర్ యువర్ గోల్స్ అండ్ వేర్ ఆర్ యూ స్టాండ్. దెన్ యూ more often than not, most likely you'll be walking towards your goals or working towards your goals.
రాకపోతే బాగా అరే పచ్చగా బయట ఉంది కదా వాళ్ళ ఇంట్లో ఉంది. సో మోస్ట్ ఆఫ్ యువర్ డెసిషన్స్, ఫైనాన్షియల్ డెసిషన్స్ ఆర్ నాట్ yours alone. They're influenced by the society that you live in or your peers that you associate with every day. And how do you make those decisions, or how do you make those financial goals that are truly yours and not are inspired by the society you live in or the friends you're living with or the colleagues that you work at workplace? How can somebody make such decisions? Financially independent and non-influenced decisions.
The basic filter that I follow is, ఇది నా దగ్గర ఉందని చెప్పి ఎవరికి తెలియకపోయినా నేను కొంటానా లేదా. సో ఇఫ్ నో వన్ నోస్ అబౌట్ ఇట్, విల్ ఐ స్టిల్ బై దిస్ ఆర్ నాట్? Say for example, I might buy a mattress and it might cost me 30,000 rupees under. And there is another option of mattress of 6,000. So then there's another mattress option of 1 lakh rupees. Right? మూడింటి మీద పడుకున్నాం. ఈ 6,000 రూపీస్ నాకు మోస్ట్ కంఫర్టబుల్ అనిపించు. 30,000 to 1 lakh are way beyond my budget. But because it is in my bedroom and because I will cover it with my blanket, no one will know what is the price of it. And because no one knows, people only will know the comfort of it. They sleep on it. Right? So, in the same fashion, what I will do, I'll buy the 6,000 one only, right? In the same fashion, if no one knows if I have it or not, then I still kontana leda. That is what actually makes the difference. If you're still thinking, okay, na digro, Rolex watch, జనాలందరూ దగ్గర అంటే ఫ్రెండ్స్ ఎవరి దగ్గర లేదు, ఎవరి దగ్గర ఉంది, నేను చూసాను, కొనుక్కున్నాను. Rolex watch, you want to flash it out. And there will be someone who will be buying a replica Rolex watch. You might have bought a Rolex watch at, let's say, 10 lakh rupees. But might be someone else would have bought a replica Rolex watch of 10,000 and 20,000. 20,000 Rolex watches are very, very similar to a 10 lakh Rolex watches. You will not be, for an untrained eye, you will never be able to establish the difference between these two. Same thing in hair oil, all the Patek Philippe, Cartiers, and all the wonderful brands of the world. And now, are you someone who is buying it because you appreciate the horology that the brand carries? Or are you buying it just to show it off? If you're buying it just to show it off, you'd rather buy the 20,000 one because you'll not find a difference in between. And you will have bought it irrespective of not showing it out to anyone. I mean, the same thing that people do with cars, right? People buy fancy cars, but they don't know how to drive it. I know a couple of people who bought really, really good cars, and they have not, ever enjoyed the car. It is the drivers who are enjoying the car. Right? What is the whole purpose of the buying a car? Just another image one. Are they comfortable at the back seat? Most of the time, no. You would have rather enjoyed buying a 35 lakh car than going to that 1.4 car, sitting in the back seat, which is actually made for these things, rather than buying a little fancier version of a sports car, right? And sitting in the back seat, where you'll never be comfortable. All these decisions stem the moment you take a conscious decision. Was ఎవరికి తెలిసినా తెలియకపోయినా, నేను నా దగ్గర ఉందని ఎవరికి తెలిసినా తెలియకపోయినా, I would have bought this. It will make a huge difference in your action.
Tana, we are living in a trust economy where financial influences are more trustworthy than institutions. They are more approachable, they are seen. And what are the qualities that someone should look out for when they're listening to a financial influencer? And what are the red flags? What do you think?
Instagram నుండి చాలా మంది మెడికల్ డాక్టర్స్, సో కాల్డ్ హెల్త్ కేర్ ఎక్స్పర్ట్స్, హెల్త్ కేర్ ఇన్ఫ్లుయెన్సర్స్ ఉన్నారు. Let's say someone from your family, your dad, someone else. Will you go to them because they're more approachable? Or will you wait in a queue and reach out to a proper doctor, even about the contact even a trusted local doctor? Everything health,
Trust doctor,
right?
qualified.
Qualification, right? So there's a reason why people are qualified. There's an institution which has tested, which has taught you the basics, which has, then tested your knowledge on subjects. All these influencers, what happens is most of the time they don't know much. We'll always take an example of one or the other financial which who has, stand a lot of people. There is someone from the back who has, but all these people are actually not the same people who have not, not been willing to give a 750 rupees or 1,000 rupees to the CAs for advice. Are the same people who are going and spending crores and crores, who are influencers just because they are emotionally tempted, right? So they say, good advice comes from transparency and relevance, right? How transparent is that? చిన్నప్పుడు always LIC aims used to they say, మీరు పెట్టండి మీకు ఇంత వస్తుంది ఎంత వస్తుంది అని వాళ్ళ స్టోరీ అంటే వాళ్ళు పెట్టిన వాళ్ళు ఎప్పుడు ఎవరు బాగుపడలేదు. టుడే యూ హ్యావ్ మోర్ availability and access to information than what you ever had with. In that situation, it is more pertinent and important that you collect information from multiple sources and you have someone who is qualified guiding you. The typical simple example is Google me నీకు 2-3 symptoms చెప్పాను. ఇట్ ఐదర్ సే యూ హ్యావ్ ఎ బ్రెయిన్ ట్యూమర్, రేపు ఎల్లుండి చచ్చిపోతున్నావు అని చెప్తుంది, ఏదో హార్ట్ అటాక్ వచ్చేస్తుంది అని చెప్తుంది, లేకపోతే లంగ్ క్యాన్సర్ ఏదో చెప్తుంది. దర్ ఇస్ నథింగ్ సింపుల్. ఇట్ విల్ నెవర్ సే బస్ ఇది డిహైడ్రేషన్ వల్ల వచ్చిన తలనొప్పి వీళ్ళు నీరు తాగరా అని చెప్పదు. యూ ఆల్వేస్ సే సంథింగ్ హ్యూజ్, రైట్? ఆల్ దీస్ ఇన్ఫ్లుయెన్సర్స్, రైట్, are most of the time, more often than not, are not qualified. They just make all the salesmen in different, sort. Okay. So it is more important that you do the basic analysis when you go to. అంతేగాని and you see you are going and approaching a qualified guy. నీకు ఆపరేషన్ చేయించాలంటే you will not go and approach any random RMD or any, unqualified doctor. Though he might have practiced for the last 10 years or 15 years in a village or small street. Right? You will obviously కచ్ అయినా పెయిన్ అయినా వెళ్ళి ఒక కాంటినెంట్ లోనో అపోలోనో 2 గంటలు కూర్చుని వెయిట్ చేసి అది కన్సల్టేషన్ తీసుకుని అప్పుడే వస్తారు. Same thing has to happen with the financial thing. Otherwise, you just be other statistic. దాన్ని ఏమంటారు, టెలిగ్రామ్ డబ్బులు పోగొట్టుకునే యువతి ఆ టైపే వస్తుంది తప్ప దానికన్నా ఇదేం ఉండదు. విల్ జస్ట్ బి అనదర్ స్టాటిస్టిక్.
Ammi once took me to ophthalmologist. She took me to 2 people. First one, he was shouting at the other patient because the patient apparently did not listen to the doctor's sufficiency or doctor's whatsoever. And I did from the medical check. I was too young, like my 8th standard or 9th standard. I said, Ammi, I don't want to go. And I started crying there. And because I was crying there, she took me to another doctor. And then he said, Amara Kadam, you should stop washing your hair. And then we realized all the while, when I looked back after a couple of years, my headaches did not go away. I was still suffering from headache. Appudu I went back. Mummy said, no, you have to go now. Let me take you to this doctor. I was there. He's just being, he's talking out from a place of authority. Appudu నేను వెళ్ళి చూసినప్పుడు when he gave me something, he was loud, he was a little strict, disciplinarian, but he was right in his diagnosis and he was right in his treatment. But as a kid, I was scared to go there because he was shouting. Well, he was little loud. Shouting is a wrong word. He was loud. And the other person was quiet. But when we are talking about qualifications, see the contrast. That's where I'm coming from. He was a trained ophthalmologist. He was just a lab guy. We did not know that because of late, many people have been setting up clinics. So how do we make sure in this contrast of qualifications and human qualities, how do we make sure that the financial advisor also has a quite of human qualities? Because he might be trained, he might be qualified, but if he's shouting at me, hey, double husband and ఏడ్చుకుంటూ వెళ్ళిపోతాను నేను. but what he must have meant is right. So, what are the human? No, nobody is right. You always say, Nana, there is black, there is white, and between there are 50 shades of gray. So, if I have to lean a little towards human qualities and also more about qualifications, what are the qualities of a financial advisor that I should be looking out for?
So not just for a financial advisor, typically for most of any person you work with, even in most of our interviews when we are looking to hire someone, what we look at is something called as IIP. Not just for financial advisors, for any person you want to work with or you associate with, or even for people whom we like to hire. You check for something called as IIP, intelligence, integrity, and empathy. Then you will not be able to live. You'll be stuck with. If it doesn't have integrity, you will be stuck, right? And if it doesn't have empathy, he will not have the ability, to work with you, consider your eye, etc. So I obviously what this is assuming that you have some qualified.
Now, the financial stress is not just for a particular category of people. It is universal. And I'm sure you must be having your own situations when you feel the financial stress of the transactions that you deal at workplace, or what happens when you have two sisters, or when you have a new wife, or you have hobbies that you want to put. No, do something.
Usually feels that I had an old wife.
Oh, no. You have a wife. Okay, now you're newly married and you have a wife. Now, what you had to do all alone on this wife, there's a additional good member in the family. And so, నువ్వు చెప్పావు కదా లైక్ 30,000 ఉంటుంది అది 30,000 ఎగ్జాంపుల్ నా అది ఒకరికి 30,000 is good. Now when your family keeps growing or your circle keeps growing, అదే 30,000 will add a little stress. So I'm just taking this example. How do you manage the financial stress that you go through at workplace or in your personal life? How do you manage that?
Earlier, I was a very, very, very bad at it. So the moment we actually started jotting down, I started jotting. It was, where I could. How can I go? సో నాకు ఏం కావాలో నాకు తెలుసు అక్క. ఎక్కడున్నానో తెలుసు. అక్కడి నుంచి అక్కడికి వెళ్ళాలి. బ్రెయిన్ విల్ ఆటోమేటికలీ థింక్. You will read a couple of words, you will read, take advice from couple of people. And now you will take advice from the ChatGPT or Grok or any of those things. Like, the first thing is to understand where you are. What are your finances? X amount is my salary. Y amount is my EMI. Z amount is my rent. Something else is my monthly grocery bill. So you will know bare minimum this much is what I need. And you will also, if you're starting a new family and everything, you'll be able to establish the boss. X amount was my earlier cost. Now that might become X plus one or X plus one, whatever it is. So once you're able to establish that breakdown, and you're also able to establish the new revenues, right? X might be your salary, Y might be her salary. So you might have an X plus Y that. You'll be able to understand, okay, together this is how much you are making. Together this is how much you need to survive, sustain, live happy, right? And together this is how much we are able to do surplus to the balance that we have left there, or the deficit that we have. And how can we manage the surplus or deficit? అది ఈ థర్డ్ పార్ట్ ఉంది కదా, అది ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ ఈజీగానే అయిపోతుంది. అంటే ఫస్ట్ రెండు ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేసి బ్రేక్ డౌన్ పెట్టేస్తే నీకు అర్థమైపోతుంది థర్డ్ లైన్ ఎలా హ్యాండిల్ చేయొచ్చు. మొదటి మ్యారీడ్, you have an option. Because ఇద్దరం బయట తింటే that 10,000 will become 20,000. Or if we hire a cook and ఇంట్లో చేసుకున్నా, that 10,000 instead of becoming 20,000, that it still might remain at 10,000 or at a better option. So, or maybe even become 12,000. But you'll still have an option to cook at home, make it have a cook and all those things. So you will be able to double మిగలట్లేదు, సరిపడా మిగలట్లేదు. అప్పుడు you know where to cut down on your costs. Yes, and you can also know where to improve your finances. So the first part is always jotting it down, putting a pen and paper together and writing out నీకు ఏమొస్తుంది, ఎక్కడెక్కడ ఖర్చు పెడుతుంది, ఆ ఖర్చు పెడుతుందని క్లాసిఫికేషన్స్ లైక్ ఇంటి కోసం ఎంత, గ్రోసరీస్ కోసం ఎంత, ఎంటర్టైన్మెంట్ కోసం, వాట్ ఆర్ what you can go away, what you can do away, and all those things. Establish అయిపోతే క్లారిటీ వచ్చేస్తుంది. That is what will help you a lot and reduce stress. Yes.
How can one strike a balance between logic and emotion when it comes to financial decisions?
You should ideally more involve emotion, more financial. As I said, most of the successful fund managers are the ones who have kept their emotions in check. But ideally, what you should do is if you're still emotional, what you should do is you should use numbers or logics as your foundation for addition. Let's say you want to take a significant expenditure. Use numbers as your logic. Right? This is your X is your earnings, Y is your expenditure. Then the effort చేయడం లేదా నీకు అర్థమైంది. నాకు ఎగ్జాంపుల్లో 1 lakh is your earnings, 70,000 is your expenditure. 30,000 మిగులుతుంది. You want to buy something, the watch of let's say 3 lakhs. Ideally, you should not. Your monthly expenditure itself is 1 lakh, so you should not buy a watch of 3 lakhs. Or you want to buy a watch of 3 lakhs. Right? And ఈఎంఐ ఆప్షన్ ఏదో ఉంది. ఈ సెట్ మా 30,000 10 నెలలు కట్టు, నీకు వాచ్ వేయాలని తీసేసుకో, pay that EMI of 10 months or 11 months or whatever it is. So you can afford it. Technically speaking, you can afford it. But at least by jotting it down, you're able to use logic as your foundation. And once you use it as a foundation, more often than not, your common sense will tell you, right? Even otherwise, if the numbers work around. And it might look as a great investment, great opportunity of paper. If you're not emotionally connected to it, or if your instinct says otherwise, right? You can always hold back. Instead of your emotions driving you and letting you take a bad decision, let your logic guide you to an extent, and let your emotion take the decision over from there. 90% లాజిక్ వచ్చిన 10% కామన్ సెన్స్ వచ్చేస్తుంది. అదే 90% ఎమోషన్ తెరుదాం, 10% కామన్ సెన్స్ ఉంది కదా పని చేయి.
So now, what is one emotionally intelligent habit that anyone, regardless of their financial status or regardless of their income level, can start today to feel more peaceful with their finances?
You should actually start practicing gratitude. ఎక్కడి నుంచి వచ్చా? What were we before? Where did we start? How far have we come? Most of us have started a career where we did not even have that luxury of spending 500 rupees per square talent, intelligence structure. Now, most of us have reached a place where in which 500 rupees may be a one day's meal. One meal. One day. So that 500 has become, come all the way from being very, very important, to a discretionary spend. Right? So when you practice gratitude and understand this is all that I have achieved so far, you will also understand, boss, I have come this far, and going to the next level is only this far. So journaling and practicing gratitude will actually help you a lot.
How do you think financial and mental health relationship will evolve? Because you spoke about gratitude on the journey of the 500 rupees. From being, wow, 500 rupees or more 500 rupees, 500 rupees. There has been an evolution of the journey of 500 rupees. Now, in that aspect, in the same manner, what do you think will be the relation of finances and mental health in the next 5 to 10 years?
So you'll not be able to even do a proper case estimate about it. In the quarter, there will be people, thanks to the abundance of information, abundance of knowledge, people will start taking financially prudent decisions. So there's a recent podcast that I heard. Recent post. This is the first time in history where in which stock market, gold, real estate, all the different risk categories of assets have appreciated. Usually they appreciate inverse in proportion. The gold pike stock market కింద వస్తుంది. Stock market pike gold వస్తుంది. And they put that different risk asset classes. This is the first time in history post-COVID or from COVID. All the asset classes are gone. And this might be because rupee has lost its value. Money has lost its value. The reserve banks have been pumping money. So much money is available in the market. So risk averse ఉన్నోడు గోల్డ్ కొనుక్కున్నాడు. రిస్క్ తీసుకున్నవాడు స్టాక్ మార్కెట్ కొనుక్కున్నాడు. ఇంకేదైనా కావాలనుకున్నాడు ఇల్లు కొనుక్కున్నాడు. వాట్ ఎవర్ అందరూ అన్ని కొనుక్కున్నారు. దర్ హ్యాస్ బీన్ ట్రెమెండస్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్. Because of it, the cost of everything has gone. The price of everything has gone. So it will not continue like that. Right? It has to correct. Okay. A correction of sir. Be it in stock market, be it in real estate, be it in gold or something or the other. Correction will always happen. This is will always find the logic always prevails. Now in that situation, there are a lot of newfound millionaires and people who suddenly made. Now people who have been very, very smart about it. They would have diversified by that, and found other sources of income, streamlined it, booked their profits and all those things. And they're sitting on the pile of cash instead of sitting on the stocks which are now depreciating or whatever. Others who would have thought, okay, in 2020 ఇది కొన్నాను అప్పుడు 10 రూపీస్ ఉండేది 2024కి 100 రూపీస్ అయింది. ఇప్పుడు దాన్ని అలా ఎంచుకుంటాను 2028కి 1000 రూపీస్ అవుతుందో 2027కి 1000 రూపీస్ అవుతుందో అనుకుంటుంటే అంటారు. వాళ్ళందరూ అమాయకులు. వాళ్ళ మెంటల్ హెల్త్ ఏమవుతుందో దేవుడి మీదకి. People who use the information which is available have gone to one advisor or the other. And the advisor would have told him, definitely would have told him, sir, you have made కదా 50 లక్షల నుంచి 5 కోట్లకు వచ్చావు కదా, ఇట్స్ ఓకే, నువ్వు 5 కోట్లు ఇస్ అ గుడ్ ప్రాఫిట్. నౌ దీన్ని లెట్స్ డైవర్సిఫై. ఈ 5 కోట్లు కింద కలిపితే మళ్ళీ నీకు రాత్రి నిద్రపోతావు. ఈ 5 కోట్లు 50 లక్షలు అయింది అనుకో, ఎవ్రీ ఇయర్ ఒక 50 లక్షలు 10% రిటర్న్ వస్తుంది. విల్ బి హ్యాపీ. 50 లక్షలు సంవత్సరానికి ఏం చేసుకుంటాడు, రైట్? విల్ బి హ్యాపీ, ప్రశాంతంగా నిద్రపోతావు. అదే 5 కోట్లు 4 కోట్లు అయినా సరే నీ మళ్ళీ నిద్రపోతావు. ఆ 4 కోట్లు 5 కోట్లు చేయాలని చెప్పి తాపత్రయంలో 4 కోట్లని 2 కోట్లు చేస్తావు. మొత్తం బాగుంది. దాని బదులు సో దిస్ ఇస్ వాట్ ఐఎమ్ సేయింగ్, లైక్ different categories of people who take an advice on their financial and walk in the right path. They'll be happy, sound, and they will always be happy. That is what, history has been teaching us. People who have been stupid in their thought, ki bas, nakanna deveno liveru. I am, God's blessing to the world. Anukunna only. They will be, busy paying the doctor's fees and wondering, why they have aged so quickly.
So I bring in a topic hand in this conversation. How important is emotional intelligence in a financial decision making?
Very, very important. So what I realized is, over the last, I think I started trading 13 years ago. Okay. I made money, I lost money, I made money, I lost money. It was a vicious cycle. Right? And I think some 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I realized I kept losing money every time I'm emotional about it. So let's take an example. Let's assume that there is a political event. What is an emotional right? If I like Modi, I'll say, boss, Modi will win. Irrespective. The logic might say something else, exit post might say something else. Everything. I'm putting everything driven by my logic or driven by my emotion rather than letting my logic win up. So emotionally, I am biased by something. I'm not bothered. I wanted to be proven right. Then other Chris is smarter than everyone else, reciprocate this and a feeling low. I'm taking a decision on which I don't have any control over. That is stupidity. It is not emotional intelligence. It is sheer stupidity. And every time I've done that, sometimes I've made money, sometimes I've lost. But I have lost more than what I have made. So I'm not trading. I was actually gambling. So every time you let your emotions decide what is your next course of action, you're basically gambling. The rule of gambling is you will always lose money in gambling. It is only the house which will win. Right. The player will never win in gambling. The smart people who move out from gambling are okay. ఒక 2-3 లాటరీలు తగిన వెంటనే ఆపేసిన వాడు ఆడికి డబ్బులు ఉంటాయి. 3 సార్లు గెలిచాను కదా వాళ్ళ లక్ బాగుంది. ఇంకో 4గోసారి ఆడదాం ఎంత పెట్టనుకున్నాడు మొత్తానికి పోతుంది. తిరిగి వెళ్ళడానికి క్యాబ్ ఖర్చు కూడా ఉండదు. అంతే. నువ్వు ఓడిపోయావు కాబట్టి అది నీకు ఫ్రీ కార్ కూడా ఉండదు. మొన్నటానికి కూడా. సో వెన్ యూ ఆర్ ఎమోషనల్లీ డిపెండెంట్ in finances, right? The emotional intelligence is all about not letting your emotions be involved, right? You frame a logic. You will understand, okay, my family is important. My experiences are, or my passion is, or something else is important. If you say your family is important, what will you do? You will do a plan of action for the well-being of your family. Yellow term insurance is హెల్త్ ఇన్సూరెన్స్ తీసుకో. సమ్మర్ వెల్స్ కమ్మించే అది ఎన్ని పిచ్చి పిచ్చి పనులు చేస్తున్నాము, ఎన్ని గంట నైట్ కూర్చొని సిట్టింగ్ చేస్తా ఉంది. ఆ సిట్టింగ్ ఖర్చులో నీకు ఒక టర్మ్ ఇన్సూరెన్స్ వచ్చేస్తుంది. సో ఇఫ్ సంథింగ్ హ్యాపన్స్ టు యూ టుమారో యువర్ ఫ్యామిలీ స్టిల్ సౌండ్ అండ్ సేఫ్, రైట్? సో యూర్ కవరింగ్ యువర్ ఫ్యామిలీ, prioritizing your family's well-being over wasted expenditure. But what does your emotion say? Your emotion says, అరే పమ్మడు వచ్చాడు అడిగాడు అడిచి ఎప్పుడో కూర్చున్నాము, right? Again, let's, I want to have that quality time with him and all those. And gold is a waste expenditure whatsoever. అది చేద్దాం అనిపిస్తుంది. But if you're letting your emotions or someone else will come, your dad's friend, your mom's friend, or దూరం చుట్టమో స్కూల్లో నుంచి వచ్చేది ఎవడో వచ్చి నేను ఎల్ఐసి తీసుకున్నాను డబ్బులు కట్టా అని. ఇఫ్ యూర్ వాట్ డస్ యువర్ ఎమోషన్స్, అరే నాతో పాటు స్కూల్లో చదివినప్పుడు వీడి దగ్గర నేను పాలసీ తీసుకుంటే వీళ్ళు హ్యాపీగా ఉంటాడు అనే ఫీలింగ్ ఉంటుంది. But what does, if you look at logic, you know that all those endowment plans typically don't give you a good return. Established to, you do a term insurance and you do the balance amount in, typical government bonds or any good bonds, related bonds, you'll end up making more often, like you end up making 2x or 3x of that, what you would have made money in the endowment plans. All these options, he's your friend. So you would also understand. If you're being emotional about it, you'll not survive. And emotional intelligence, in more often than not, is about not letting your emotions win over you, right? And stick on to your logical plan on what is important. That will help in your financial well-being as a whole.
Or how do you think a mental health professional can work with a financial professional for their well-being, holistic well-being?
Assume that you have a friend who I'll go son. And that new shop open somewhere. A shop, my friend will job and job shop. Over a period of time, you come realize what do the name he is stealing from you. లేకపోతే అమ్ముతున్నాడు కానీ డబ్బులు అటు పాకెట్లో పెట్టేసు నీకు ఇవ్వట్లేదు. ఇది అవుతాం. What will you do? What is the problem? What will you do?
Problem is not being authentic.
Saying laptop integrate.
Yeah, I don't think that.
That is not the problem. అది చేయగలిగాడు. సో ఇంకోటి తీసుకొని పెట్టాం. వాడు అదే చేస్తాడు కదా. The problem is lack of context. ఇప్పుడు నువ్వు ఏదైనా షాప్కి వెళ్ళావు అనుకో, ఆల్ దిస్ KFC's నేను సే బాస్ బిల్ లేకపోతే దిస్ ఇస్ ఫ్రీ అంట. తెలుసా? చూసావు కదా? That is basically establishing a control. Simple thing, very, very simple. And what happens is a lot of times, the challenges that we face are can be simply broken down. Saying it was is a lack of control, is a lack of financial planning, or is this lack of something else, right? If you guys have a clarity, so, the way that you said, he was, I was at the same thing. బాస్ ఆడికి ఇంటిగ్రిటీ లేదు, నేను ఆడిని తీసుకుని వచ్చాను, ఆడి కష్టకాలంలో ఆడికి నేను తోడుగా ఉన్నాను, ఆడి ఇబ్బంది పెట్టాడు, ఆడి సేమ్ క్వశ్చన్ బాస్ వీడు చేయగలిగాడంటే పక్కన కూడా చేస్తాడు కదా. నీదంటే నీ షాప్ కాబట్టి నువ్వు చేయలేదు, పక్కన ఎందుకు చేయలేదు, ఇప్పుడు పొరవని పెట్టుకుంటావు, ఆడు చేస్తాడు. బికాస్ దే ఏబుల్ టు గెట్ అవే విత్ ఇట్, దే హావ్ డన్ ఇట్. సో ద మూమెంట్ యూ బ్రింగ్ ఇన్ ఇంటర్నల్ let him bleed someone else, right? You will say, boss, bill లేకపోతే తీయండి. They will ask for bill. When you are doing the bill, at the end of the day, you will know in your system ఇంత బిల్లింగ్ అయింది. ఆడ మనీ ఇవ్వాలి. 100% ఇవ్వాలి. వారానికి ఒకసారో 2 వారాలకు ఒకసారో స్టాక్ చెక్ చేస్తారు. గ్యాప్ ఏదైతే ఉందో ఇది ఎస్టాబ్లిష్. So basically, you are establishing controls. In a similar fashion for financial people also, but people are facing stress. What happens is, usually professionals are not collaborative. They want to be a jack of all trades. ఆడికి వచ్చినా రాకపోయినా ఏదో చెప్పేయారు. ఇప్పుడు ఎవరన్నా దగ్గరకు వచ్చి "క్రిస్ నాకు గుండెలో నొప్పి వస్తుందని అనుకో, ఐ విల్ నాట్ టెల్ హిమ్ సార్ మెడిటేషన్ చేయండి, ప్రాణాయామ చేయండి అని చెప్తాను. సార్ డాక్టర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళండి అని చెప్తారు. రైట్. బట్ వాట్ హ్యాపెన్స్ ఇస్ when especially when professionals are not secure in their figure and they want desperate to gather all the fees that they can. No. అప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తారంటే ఏముంది సార్ చిన్న ఫైనాన్షియల్ ఇదే కదా, నేను ఆయన్ని సార్ ప్రాణాయామం చేయండి, మెడిటేషన్ చేయండి, విపాసన చేయండి అని చెప్తాను. ఆయనకి ఏం చెప్తాను, సార్ డాక్టర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళండి అని చెప్తాను. అంతే కదా. సో దట్ ఈస్ వాట్ పీపుల్ ఆర్ when they're safe and comfortable in their role and they know that they will not be able to solve everything. Right? నేను ఏం చేయగలను అది ఇస్తుంది. But unfortunately what happens is most of the professionals are not like that. They want to be a jack of all trades. అన్నీ చేసేద్దాం. ఏముంది ఆడికి ఏదో ఫైనాన్షియల్ స్ట్రెస్ వల్ల హెడ్ఏక్ వచ్చు. స్ట్రెస్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ హీస్ హ్యావింగ్ ఎ స్ట్రెస్ బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ ప్రాబ్లమ్. ఈనాటికి సొల్యూషన్ లేదు. ఈనాటికి ఏం చెప్తున్నాం, రూట్ కాజ్ ఆఫ్ ప్రాబ్లమ్ ఏంటి, ఫైనాన్షియల్ డిసిప్లిన్ అవ్వచ్చు, ఫైనాన్షియల్ ఛాలెంజ్ అవ్వచ్చు. నేను ఒక వేరే ప్రొఫెషనల్ దగ్గరికి పంపించాను. సీఏ మైట్ సాల్వ్ హిమ్ లైక్ షిట్, జస్ట్ లైక్ దాట్. మైట్ సే సార్ మీ ఇష్యూ ఇది, నువ్వు ఓడి తీసుకో, టర్మ్ లోన్ తీసుకోండి, లేకపోతే ఫైనాన్షియల్ కంట్రోల్స్ అని ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేయండి. ద ఎగ్జాంపుల్స్ దట్ ఐ గేవ్ యూ, సార్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ కంట్రోల్స్ ఇలా చేయండి, ఎక్సెట్రా సో ఆన్ సో ఫోర్త్. So there are very few people who are able to identify the problem, right? And there are very few people who will be able to give a solution to me. Sometimes professionals should understand they're not professionals for everything. They're not experts on everything, right? There is a reason that you're qualified in your particular field because you're very good at it. And you should be open to collaborate with others. You see as, a professional, you see a client and problem. You understand keywords. This guy is going through a financial stress because of sweat chilies. Or you understand he's going through a financial stress and you might not be able to pinpoint the reasons. But you should be open. Saying to you, boss, go and talk to this CA. Or go and talk to, not existing CA, go and talk to your other CA. Take a fresh person. That will help him. More often than not, unfortunately, professionals are not willing to collaborate with other గిర చేసుకుని సిఎంసీఎల్తో మాట్లాడుకుంటారు, మెంటల్ హెల్త్ కేర్ ప్రొఫెషనల్తో మాట్లాడుకుంటారు, డాక్టర్లతో మాట్లాడు, యాక్టర్. సో యూఆర్ జస్ట్ ఇన్ అ స్మాల్ world of yourself, not willing to collaborate with others. But what people should understand is, it is not you who is important. It is the well-being of the client, right? Client is the center of your universe, right? You should roam around. The ప్రపంచం చుట్టూ తిరుగుతూ ఉండాలి. If he is happy, he will be happy. So you should be willing to collaborate for his purpose. Collaborate, I think it will do wonders.
How do you think AI impacts the financial sector? Because AI is coming after everything, Bill Gates quoted a few jobs which will stay and the rest of the jobs will be taken up by AI. How do you think AI will affect the financial sector?
See, I think the change will be huge. The impact will be huge. Now, what is happening with AI is doing a lot of basic jobs way better than what a basic resource can, empty resource can. We have been testing it. So, in the financial world, what will happen is, it can be your first go-to source for any information. Right? You have someone is interested in starting their financial journey. You go and ask AI. In the mundu, you had to depend on a lot of, noise. You have to go through a lot of, YouTube video. You have to hear a lot of bullshit. And then there was some piece of information. And if you have not observed it, there would have been a small, disclaimer saying keep us associated with this incident. Or if you take this policy, I get so and so. Sponsored poster. This. When AI what I'm believing will happen is on the noise you'll get retrospective. You'll have access to information, or you'll have access actually to a certain extent, you'll have access to knowledge, not just information, right? And of course, a lot of jobs will be lost, a lot of new jobs will be built. And especially when it comes to the finance or your financial well-being, you can't enter you're in a particular situation. It can give you a roadmap on where you are, how can you go to your goal, how can you reach your goal. ఇప్పుడు ఎక్కడ ఉన్నావు అక్కడికి ఎలా వెళ్ళాలి అది రోడ్ మ్యాప్ ఇస్తుంది. లాట్ ఆఫ్ మై ఫ్రెండ్స్ ఆర్ యూజింగ్ ఇట్. అండ్ ఐ వోంట్ సే ఏఐ ఇస్ గివింగ్ యూ అ సాలిడ్ గ్రేట్ అడ్వైస్, స్ట్రక్చర్డ్ డెసిషన్స్ అవన్నీ చేయగలుగుతుంది. ఎందుకంటే ఈచ్ ప్రాబ్లమ్ మైట్ బి లిటిల్ డిఫరెంట్. బట్ 90% of most of the problems are similar. So it can give you a solution which is generic. But again, when it comes to specific solution, we need an expert. Right? When it comes to financial professionals, unless and until you're an expert, you'll be replaced with an AI.
Yeah.
Right? You should be able to give a structured solution, a customizability of each solution which will suit the particular person is what defines you. Right? With AI, people who are, willing to put in their effort to build their finances, build their financial health, build their, get out from a stressful position or reach their goals, and it will be easier for them to reach over there. But whereas people who have never spent any effort on all these things, they'll continue to remain the same and be overtaken by the others, other group, very rapidly. Someone armed with it. 90% solution at 10% effort పెడతారు దొరికేస్తారు. He will తను ఏమంటారు వాడిని చాలా క్విక్ గా దాటేస్తాడు. ఇంతకుముందు వాడు లెట్స్ సే he is able to reach 1 kilo. Now he will be in a position to reach 2.5 kilometers in the same time. True. And this guy who has not put in any effort, ఇది ఎక్కడుంటే అక్కడే ఉంటుంది. ఇంతకుముందు 1 kilometer అనుకోకుండా 2.5 kilometers అంటారు. So technically though he is in the same place, but if you see this fallen, way behind than where other persons.
Or expansion to that question, the answer that you're giving, you help the other side of the financial spectrum. Now, if there is somebody who's coming to become a CA or a financial advisor, they're new. They're not just competing with other CAs or other financial advisors, they're also competing with AI. So how do they stay afloat or ahead of a machine or an artificial intelligence? What do you think are the qualities now an aspiring CA or a financial professional should have according to you?
AI can never replace AI, the ability to bring in a structured solution. The ability to bring in a structured solution comes from detailed knowledge, in-depth knowledge. Issue తెలుసు దాన్ని బ్రేక్ డౌన్ చేయగలిగి ఉన్నా. ఆ బ్రేక్ డౌన్ చేసిన తర్వాత ఈచ్ ప్రాబ్లంకి ఎన్ని సొల్యూషన్స్, ఆ స్పీచ్ సొల్యూషన్కి ఛాలెంజెస్ ఏంటి, ఇంపాక్ట్ ఏంటి. సో ఆ ఇంపాక్ట్ ఏదైనా చిన్న ఛాలెంజ్ ఉంటే హౌ కెన్ బి సర్కమ్వెంట్, ఇది ఐడియా రాదు. చెప్పడానికి చాలా ఈజీగా ఉండొచ్చు కానీ దిస్ ఇస్ వాట్ డిఫరెన్షియేట్స్ పీపుల్ ఫ్రమ్ అదర్స్. Successful professional and not so successful. There are a lot of CAs today who get qualified and who still work for a 30,000 rupees. Which is hardly like 2.5 times below the average campus placement. Is what they might, give different reasons. They will say, boss, నేను ఊరు నుంచి చిన్న ఊరు నుంచి వచ్చాను, నాకు ఆ కమ్యూనికేషన్ స్కిల్స్ లేదు, ఆర్ మా ఊర్లో ఇంత ప్రాక్టీస్ జరిగేది కాదు, సో నాకు ఇంతే స్కిల్స్ వచ్చు. సో దేర్ విల్ ఆల్వేస్ బి ఎక్స్క్యూజెస్. సో బట్ దెన్ అగైన్ అదే ఊరు నుంచి వచ్చిన ఇంకో సీఏ ఉన్నాడు, రైట్, would have been a national ranker and would have earned higher than the mean average for that exercise. With AI, what is happening is your place is no longer low, small town in Jachavaran. It is not that you don't have any access to the best possible lessons. With AI, it is tutoring you in a way better situation. It is addressing a lot of challenges in game. 90% వరకు సొల్యూషన్ అది ఇచ్చేస్తుంది. దాన్ని బేస్ చేసుకుని ఐ యూబుల్ టు టేక్ ఇట్ టు ద నెక్స్ట్ లెవెల్ ఆర్ నాట్. ఇఫ్ యూర్ నాట్ ఏబుల్ టు టేక్ ఇట్ టు ద నెక్స్ట్ లెవెల్, నీ గూగుల్ సెర్చ్ చేయడం నీకు రానోడు మాత్రమే నీ దగ్గరికి వస్తాడు. Right. I think very soon we'll be reaching that situation. So right now we have face assessment when it comes to income taxation. And if you have observed, a lot of people have started getting their notices also automatically. In the month of income tax department, I used to say it, go through the returns. Avani check chesi nik permission. That has become automatic almost some 3-4 years ago itself. I would got streamlined. In the next 2-3 years, it will be way better streamlined. Now they're linking your bank accounts, your everything you're doing, and they're doing your pre-filled tax returns. So, okay, 6 years, 10 years ago, when we started doing CA, మేము పేపర్ మీద రాసుకునే వాళ్ళం. శాలరీ ఎవ్రీ మంత్ ఎంత పడింది అది చెప్పి నీట్గా చేసి రిటర్న్ చేసి పేపర్ ఫైల్ చేసేవాళ్ళం. రిటర్న్ అవతల చెక్ చేసేవాళ్ళు కూడా పేపర్లో చెక్ చేసేవాళ్ళు. ఫ్రమ్ దేర్ టు హియర్ వేర్ యువర్ రిటర్న్ ఇస్ ఆటోమేటిక్లీ ఫిల్డ్ బై అ సాఫ్ట్వేర్ అండ్ ది డిపార్ట్మెంట్ ఇస్ గివింగ్ ఇట్ టు యూ. యూ హావ్ రీచ్డ్ దట్ సిచ్యువేషన్. Now a regular employee doesn't need a CA anymore. Right? Department is filling this tax return and giving it to him, saying ఇద్దరు నువ్వు ఎంత కట్టావు, ఎంత కట్టాలి, సరిపోయింది, ప్రశాంతంగా పడుకో. లేదా ఇంకా ఎక్స్ట్రా కట్టాలి, కట్టే గొడవడు. ఇంత లేదా నీకేమన్నా అనుకుంటే రివైజ్ చేసుకో అంటే. ఇట్ హెస్ గాన్ టు దట్ ఎక్స్టెంట్. ఏ డిడక్షన్స్ పెట్టాలని పెట్టేస్తుంది, ఈ హెచ్ఆర్జీ ఎంతో పెట్టేస్తుంది, ఎవ్రీథింగ్ ఇట్ ఇస్ డూయింగ్. నువ్వేమైనా తేడా పెడుతుంటే దీనికి ప్రూఫ్ అడుగుతుంది. ఇట్ హెస్ గాన్ టు దట్ ఎక్స్టెంట్. Now, the same thing with bookkeeping and accounts, right? There are multiple softwares which are come up, and they'll also further come up. So your 90% of work, the grueling, hard work is gone. It will be streamlined. Now, everything that you'll have, the challenges, everything will be customized going forward. At 10% నేను ఫిట్ అలా చేస్తున్నావు, దాని సొల్యూషన్ అలా అచీవ్ అవుతున్నావు. దట్ ఈస్ వాట్ డిటర్మిన్స్ హౌ డిఫరెంట్ యు ఆర్. ఇఫ్ యు ఆర్ ద సేమ్ పర్సన్, నీకు 10 లక్షలు ఇచ్చి పెట్టుకోవడం ఎందుకు? AI is going to tell you the same thing at free of cost. Or membership తీసుకుంటే గ్రాక్ ఇస్ at 700 rupees a month. Yearly తీసుకుంటే 6,500. It will answer every question at any given point of time. నీకు ఆఫీస్ అవర్లో ఫోన్ చేయాలి, ఆఫీస్ అవర్లో అయినా ఫోన్ చేయకూడదు, ఇవన్నీ ఉంటాయి కదా. On the other side, grok can also talk to you in a way you want. It can be empathetic. It can drive the same point. Be it empathetic, be it, the way that you will be able to register. So you should make a difference. You should be able to bring in that 10% difference, which should be a turning point.
So should I say, think out of the box? Or is that what you'll suggest to the aspiring chartered accountants and financial professionals? Think out of the box?
Think out of the box. Straightforward ఏంటి అంటే, read what you're supposed to read. Be an expert in what you're supposed to be. If you don't have an emotional connect with your client, why will he retain? Right? He will have an emotional connect with you only if you are with him in his thick and thin. You are doing a value addition to him. You are providing him a structured solution. కంపల్సరిగా సార్ మీరు అకౌంట్స్ ఇలా వేయండి, సాలరీ ఎంప్లాయ్ అంటే సార్ 80C ఉంటుంది పెట్టండి, 80D ఉంటుంది పెట్టండి, ఇది కాదు. బియాండ్ దట్ వాట్ కెన్ యూ డూ? వాట్ ఈస్ ద సొల్యూషన్ దట్ యు ఆర్ ప్రొవైడింగ్ ఆన్ ద టేబుల్ which others are not able to provide today? So you should reach that stage. That stage comes with expertise and knowledge. Usually when you are doing CA, right, you were told to learn. ప్రతిసారి చదువుకోండి, నేర్చుకోండి. And there is nothing new on the screen. Right? You have access to information, you have access to everything. So there are enough cases. The more you go through it, the more solutions you more you'll be able to value add to your. So not adding those valuable things. Will be just like that.
Thank you so much, Anna, for taking time off your schedule and being a guest on my podcast. I truly appreciate your time and patience.
Thank you so much for having us. All the best.
Thank you.